Good afternoon, thanks for tuning into the Gach Duine podcast. As part of our Young Social Innovators project, we are learning about direct provision and trying to raise awareness of it. We have decided to make a podcast interviewing Maruf to learn more about direct provision. We met last year as part of the Amnesty project called Refugee Stories of Home. We have already ran a multicultural day. During just this week we presented a lesson to all first and second years. We are fundraising to buy people in direct provision bikes as a form of transport. We are fundraising by hosting a non-uniform day and a walk around the area. We got a speaker in from the Refugee Council of Ireland.
Before we begin, would you like to tell us a little about yourself, Maruf, and maybe give us a small backstory?
Hi, I'm Maruf from Bangladesh. I'm living in Ireland almost 3 years now, and in Direct Provision Centre.
From your point of view, what is your take on the refugee crisis around the world?
I believe this is a global problem. Still a lot of work to be done on that. I think countries have to share their responsibilities equally for this problem to be resolved. Yes, I think, towards the integration of asylum seekers and refugees, still a lot of work to be done.
Would you like to see more work done? Like, you hope for more work to be done in the future?
Oh yes, I think we already see a lot of positive work has already started, and still asylum seekers or refugees, no matter what is their background, they will always go through a lot of problems and hardships when they first come into different countries with different cultures, and so like it's an ongoing work. I think the long-term plans needs to be taken into consideration for the integration. I think this is really important to break the social stereotypes about refugees and asylum seekers in any country throughout the globe.
We know that there is a lack of understanding between the two terms, asylum seeker and refugee, so people will get mixed up on which is which. Would you like to explain to us the difference there?
Yeah, sure. A person, when they come into a state and then they claim protection, and their term is an asylum seeker. So the time they'll be waiting for their decision to be made, they're an asylum seeker. And once their decision is, once their outcome is positive, they will be considered as a refugee. So this is the difference between a refugee and an asylum seeker.
So when you come to a country, you're an asylum seeker working towards becoming a refugee, you know?
Yes, exactly.
So does not everyone make it as a refugee?
Well, no, this is a very hard screening process for asylum seekers to go through. So there will be multiple interviews that they have to go through to make it up. And then if the decision is positive, then they will be declared as a refugee, or else they will be still an asylum seeker. Sometimes they will be at the very end of that, whether when they will be waiting for the deportation order, they will be considered as a failed asylum seeker.
And how long have you been in Ireland for, and how long do you plan on staying?
Well, I'm in Ireland, it's almost 3 years now. I don't have any other plan to live in different parts. I think I'm trying to settle down in Ireland now. I have my family, my 2-year-old daughter, so I'm looking forward to stay a bit long. Trying to settle down in Ireland.
Why did you move from Bangladesh to Ireland?
To make it short, I was an activist, so I had a lot of problems. So at some point it was quite unsafe for me to live there, so I had to make a choice to move out.
Can you explain what an activist is?
An activist, from my personal kind of like, any kind of injustice in a state, people will be standing out and try to resolve the matter and taking the matters into their own hand, but it doesn't have to be very redefined. It could be peacefully. Be like an activist work. Yeah. I did my activism in different social issues, including and as well as environmental issues.
Do you have any family members back home, and do you ever get to see them?
I do all my family members back home, but I'm not sure when I'm going to see them again.
Can you go back to Bangladesh or?
Definitely not at the moment.
No. Yeah. As we know, an adult like yourself living in direct division has an allowance of $21.60 a week. Do you find it hard living on this? What are the main challenges of it?
The money is not really sufficient for single people. It's actually worse for families to live with that small amount. So you really have to budget yourself, or sometimes just you don't have enough just to maintain the very basics. Yes.
Do you feel accepted in Ireland?
Yes, I do. I feel Irish people are very friendly, and they're very accepting.
We believe that you're in college. What course are you studying in college now?
Yes, I'm doing a part-time level 8 BSc in Information Technology with DCU, and I'm also a self-taught programmer. So I'm doing two things at the same time.
Where do you attend college?
I go to DCU.
Have you faced any other problems? Any problems at the start of your visit to Ireland?
There was problems that especially to make new friends was really difficult at the beginning. Now I do have a lot of friends, and the general view towards the asylum seeker, I found that time to time a bit daunting. So, but I think I overcome that. But yes, those things I felt really lonely and quite isolated when I first started my life in Ireland.
Do you feel the culture over here is a lot different to the culture back at home?
Oh yes, it's totally different. It's very different in Ireland. Even though Ireland is a very diverse country now, and is widely accepting different cultures, but again, still it's a bit different. But
do you have any advice for any asylum seekers or refugees listening to this?
yes, I think end of the day, it's not easy to make it through. But again, I think it's important to stay positive and use every good opportunities, whether it's for volunteer work or even different social work, to take different trainings or studies. I think there's a lot of different ways to improve your circumstances and knowledge, whether it's through training or through study. I think you should be using them.
Do you want to show your book?
Yes, I have these two books. One of them is the Asylum Archive. This is somebody who took photographs of the different recreation centers since 1999. So this is my personal collection. Anybody who wants to have their own, they can contact with the publisher directly, or you can order it online. It has a lot of pictures of the different recreation centers. Some of them are no longer in use, but yeah, this is definitely recommended. And then also another book called This Hostel Life is written by Melatu Uche Okurie, and she lived in the recreation centers, if I'm not wrong, for 8 years. This book is written from her own personal experience living in the recreation center. So I think this will give a very good idea about who's going through that, and then the overall life in the recreation center.
Where can you get them?
You can order them either online, or you can contact with the publisher. They can send you one.
So you think that's a good way to raise awareness, I guess?
Oh yes, I think so. Yeah. As well as the work I'm doing with Amnesty, with these different books are available now. There's a lot of different ways you can actually get more information and more knowledge for education center and the refugee bases in Ireland.
When you came to Ireland first, how long were you asylum seeker for?
Well, I had to wait 22 months for my first long interview.
Yeah.
After the interview, I was accepted as a refugee. And yeah, so it's almost 2.5 years. I'm still in the process and hoping to move out anytime soon.
Did you struggle with the English language?
I did. I took different English language course, and I think this course was really helpful.
Is there anything else you want to say or ask?
No, I think.
So we'd like to thank you for coming in and talking to us. We hope this podcast has helped raise awareness and was very informative for our viewers. Before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to say for people at home?
Oh, thanks. I really like this idea of sharing experiences in schools, and thank you for having me here and allowing Amnesty to do the work with the school. And I would like to say big thanks to the school and to you guys to do this good work. Thanks.
Thanks.